Hello to you, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you? Time for the Lead Better edition for Monday the 13th. This would be, if you're keeping count, and I know you are, field note number 1586. The title is Team Members Who Sugarcoat Their Feedback to Colleagues.
Right. Now, there's a main reason why people would do this, and it's mostly because they view their relationships as harmony over truth, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it seems like we are maybe painting it in a negative light to have a relationship that is harmony over truth in this field note, right? But that's probably the reason why a lot of individuals might get there. If you have a team member who you're sugarcoating all of your feedback to their colleagues, it's probably that emphasis on harmony that is the culprit.
That was such a good answer. It was insightful. Well stated, concise, really, really good. Just want to say that.
You should actually have a spoonful of sugar as a visual aid with you as you're pouring it out.
Yeah. Now, I suppose that could be. I mean, the first thing that occurred, to me was you say nice things to colleagues because obviously you're trying to lull them into complacency while you sort of sabotage them from behind and steal the credit from their projects.
Yeah.
That's how some people operate. I guess.
No, I think it's, even though you or I,
it's an alternate view.
Yeah. I've never been the victim of that before. I've not really been in an organization that had that kind of culture, but it certainly does exist in some cultures, right?
Yeah.
Have you?
No, I was just trying to come up with the most nefarious counterpoint to the one that you outlined.
Right.
And this
I would imagine
approach,
that when everyone sees the hierarchy and that there's only two anchors on the desk and the weather guy, right? And the sports person, that you've got these four spots that everybody is vying for. And then you've got, 4 or 5 people who are executive producers, and then they've got a team of 6 or 7 producers that are doing individual stories for them. So as everyone identifies, we're all stretching for that one position. A lot of that sabotage that you described might actually show up in a position like that, right?
Yeah, very well could be. Now, as we take a look and break apart this field note, and it really gets into some things that we know pretty well, because as a firm, as an organization, you can imagine that this is something that we actually think a lot about, practice about, and then advise clients and organizations around. Doesn't mean that we're always. I mean, it's like you would want to say, we're so good at this. There's nobody better than that. However you want to position humbly, we've thought a lot about this. Now, does that mean we have? Yeah. So if you were summarizing, I think the themes of the field note, we would, and then we can unpack them. It's the idea as you laid it out in terms of why, but that we would have to say that being nice to our colleagues does not necessarily equal being kind. We might actually not be helping them in the way that we need to. And so just by being nice is not necessarily a good thing. Now, what that leads to then is this conflict avoidance. And we understand it, but we have to understand that that is a lost opportunity. And when you look at this, what a lot of organizations do is they say, okay, well, we'll make this more of an anonymous process. And that simply becomes a crutch that doesn't always work. And so the field note, the heart of it is, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
And the suggestion here is 3 questions. There could be more, but these are the 3 that seem to be pretty effective that a leader can use that will help to unlock some of the honesty in this process. And that even then people will try to resist, and the leader has to set the right tone. So if we walk through these, I think we'll all see there is a way out of this. There's a way for us to deal with it individually ourselves when we're asked about feedback. And if we were setting up this process for our team or our organization, in a few short minutes, you'll be way better at it.
Yeah, but we are also suggesting that these 3 questions aren't magic necessarily. Like the real recommendation in here is the recognition that a leader needs to set the tone. This kind of culture that you're creating needs to be like referenced and pushed and demonstrated all the time, right?
Yes, right. Consistently.
And so even in our own organization, as we're thinking like, well, are you good at this? Well, I know that many of us think about it all the time. And I know that our partners who each lead, a team themselves are thinking about this all the time. And most of the way that they try to do this is by the way that they give feedback, right?
Right. Yes.
They really want to set the tone in such a way that they're open to feedback, that they give it in a kind of, admired way as much as we can, because we think about it in that kind of way. But also to recognize that, this is, if you're struggling with how to like make that culture happen, because maybe you are setting the right kind of tone and you still have like this overly friendly, overly harmonious kind of, approach to the way the colleagues treat each other. And why is this? It's because if I'm a leader, I don't always want to be the one who delivers feedback, right? Even with my own kids, like the younger kids receive feedback from the older kids in a lot less defensive way than when they're saying it for me. And it works the same way on teams. Like I would much rather create a team of high performing people who are easy at being able to give each other feedback.
Don't make sense. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so one of the things, and we'll get to the three questions here, and then we'll talk about a little bit about how we do it in our firm, which actually has changed a little bit recently. And you and I haven't talked about that, but we can talk about our opinions about what's good about that and bad about that. But the questions you might use if you were in an organization and there was this feeling that people just don't want to hurt the feelings of these people that they like, and that for whatever reason, they're going to try to preserve this harmony. And so we exist in this sort of little, nicey nice culture that if we were evaluating, right, and maybe this is in the written thing, like it is kind of in our firm, and maybe it's just the leader says it, and it could be in conversations of all kinds. You might say, Mikey might be asked about the performance of well, let's say Taylor. Taylor's on our team. And we say, what specific action or choice could Taylor change to improve their performance? Right. Now, I know you and I could probably spend the next 90 minutes and not run out of things that we could say that Taylor needs to do to improve her performance.
Well, especially if you're asking it this way, right?
Yes. Taylor, right? It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
Except for that one thing.
Right. Yes.
But okay. Yeah. Now, the second question is, well, what one choice or action could they handle differently next time? Right. And Mikey might be asked, and they could think, well, that actually, you would actually, first of all, what could that person do to improve their performance the next time? What's a choice or action they could handle differently? That's even the kind of question you start to feel like, well, I'd kind of like to know that about myself. Like even if I ask myself about myself, that might be helpful. And if I actually had somebody that had my best interests in mind, and shouldn't we all be looking for people who have our best interests in mind? You would want that kind of feedback. Now, the third area is what area of their performance offers the greatest opportunity for improvement in the future. Right. And because there's a lot of usually there's sort of an overlapping number of areas in our spheres of all kinds of things. And easy to think about, an athletic sort of example, right? If somebody, and I'm not a golfer, but if their putting is substandard to some of the other parts of their game, well, here's where they might need to have some work, right? So you could say, let's think about that. Let's take this, which is maybe a strength, but not quite as high as it is for the other things, and work on it. Now, those are fairly good questions, and they don't require you to be mean or vindictive or provide answers that would necessarily hurt somebody's feelings. If you had the answer to those questions, you might actually help the person, and they might feel pretty good about it.
Right, right. So this framework, like what we're doing, it feels like this is the actionable part of it, but the framework, there's probably 3 or 4 other things here. It reminds me of the way that we talk about the way that leaders should be giving feedback, because we could say to somebody, hey, Scott, I've got some feedback for you. Or, right, we could say, hey, can I give you a recommendation?
Can I mute you? What can I do right now?
Yeah.
In our interface, can I?
Right.
Yeah. Can I go? Can I turn my camera off?
But what I do when I'm asking you if I can give you feedback
Uh,
versus can I make a recommendation?
yeah. Please give me some of that feedback that you said in that tone. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward
but I'm
to that.
lowering the
Yeah.
resistance by the way that I'm even framing how I'm asking about it.
Uh-huh.
I can lower it at another level. Like there's this framework that says, can I offer you some advice? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I lower it even more, is can I make a suggestion? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm lowering it just a notch there in
Mm-hmm.
order to lower your resistance.
Yeah. I'm still, I just crossed my arms. I'm going to keep them crossed in skeptical
Right.
posture here. Yeah.
Yeah. But no matter what the feedback is, if I
Mm-hmm.
offer it as just a suggestion, right. Versus can I give you some feedback? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way that I'm setting it up, I'm framing it in such a way. So at the bottom of that list might be, I need to deliver some hard feedback to Scott. Let me figure out how, like, the most gentle way for me to get into this is, right, Scott.
Can we go back to picking on Taylor?
No. It's like, Scott, can I ask you a hypothetical question? Right?
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
Like that version of it is like very low resistance, right? And my status is not, I'm going to deliver you something that's coming from the leader to the subordinate. And so therefore you need to accept it. So I'm not even calling it feedback. I'm not even calling it an advice or suggestion. If I lower it all the way down, it's like, can I ask a hypothetical question? Because I can still deliver the exact same feedback.
Right.
By posing it this way. And
in,
I think
in a way that feels less threatening.
Right.
Which actually makes it superior.
Yes. So these three questions are the way to phrase the hypothetical notion, right? So that framework is intact, but it's still what specific air action or choice could this colleague change to improve their performance, right? And so there might be a really harsh way to ask that question to be able to elicit feedback. Right. And of course, there's lots of resistance. But if you're setting it up in such a way that says this is completely hypothetical, but let's just say that there's only one thing, and you have to choose what it is. There's only one thing that they can do to improve, right? And you have to choose what it is. What would it be, right? And all you're really doing is opening up the field so that they have to at least say something. But it's hypothetical. And I know you wouldn't be critical otherwise. But can we at least say something? Like, what's one thing Taylor needs?
Right. Yeah. Because even if you were the coach of the best basketball player in the world,
right,
there's always something that you would say they need to work on this. They're getting a little bit better at that, and they're tracking their improvement. They're as critical of where they fall short as anybody is. So, all right, last couple of minutes here. So the questions that we've outlined here, and again, just recapping, because the goal was this idea that just being nice does not necessarily mean that you're being kind, and that this idea of conflict avoidance really is a lost opportunity. We have to get past that. And so if we're going to try to kind of work even in this anonymous area, we could use these questions to sort of unlock some honesty. And the questions are pretty good, right? I mean, this idea of what are specific actions or choices? What's a choice or action they could handle differently next time? What's an area of performance that they could work on? And because you might even answer and say, look, this person on a sales team, really really good at seeing opportunities in sort of sectors that we hadn't approached before. They're tremendous about the way that they lay out the value proposition, but maybe they seem to be not as sophisticated as the industry right now in terms of getting those initial presentation opportunities. So they should focus more on lead acquisition in some way, right? So there you've actually given really tractionable things that are very practical. You could go into detail about the good things, and then you could point to the thing that needs to, and that's not just sandwiching something, because you actually have to be, it has to be set in a way that sounds real and not a toss away. So when we're doing that in our firm, we did that for a long time. There, we'll use an online survey circumstance to do these anonymously, and it used to be more of a written thing where you would have to write out a couple of sentences on 7 or 8 different topics. And I think as the firm grew, we just had more people, and so you were always having people putting you into lists, and you had to kind of evaluate. And sometimes you're asked to evaluate somebody's performance that's a step or two away from you, and you're like, I'm not sure I have a lot of good value here. So we tightened that a little bit, and then now there is some written part of it for you to do that. But we also even have some just sort of, select, check the box on, like, really agree with this, don't quite agree on that. Now, we don't have to fully decide on it, but do you like the old format or the new format? I'm just curious.
I do like the combination simply because it does feel like when I was 2 steps away from someone and really didn't have any real world opinion to be able to answer these essay questions, I at least could say, in my experience, I can say strongly agree or I have no idea in a way that I can be able to get through it. And I think I only evaluate 6 or 7 people throughout the course of the year. You probably were, in double digits easily, right?
Yeah. And in our firm, you're allowed to like request who you would like to, there may be more than that, but you can say, here's a list of names of people I think could speak well to my performance. And so and in the end, whether you're doing some process like this or it's all written or some of it's multiple choice, just being thoughtful and trying to figure out a system that works in your firm, it starts to get people thinking about not only how they make other people better, but it also, I think, makes you always evaluating yourself, which if there's a year between times when you're having that sort of once a year sit down, it's not a bad idea for people in the organization to be like, well, what's an area where I need to be working on this?
Right.
Or what's an action or choice that I could have done differently? And so the more that you think about it, the more that everybody gets better, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent.
Great.
Okay. Thanks very much. We'll talk tomorrow.
Indeed.